everybody, and welcome to Leading Entrepreneurs of the World. Leading Entrepreneurs of the World features entrepreneurs and business leaders presenting on cutting-edge topics and the latest in industry developments. Our goal is to provide the global business and entrepreneurial communities with a window into the minds of those who are shaping the future of the world. Today, I am very excited to welcome global corporate leader and leading entrepreneur, Biren Gandhi. Biren Gandhi is the founder and CEO of Speak to IoT and Smart India. Speak to IoT's mission is to provide a simple, secure, and universal voice AI platform. Smart India is a branded mobile app to connect everything through voice. Biren is a Silicon Valley veteran and an industry leader for over 20 years. He has been an angel investor, a mentor advisor to various business and nonprofit entities, and a passionate keynote speaker. Some of his favorite topics are the Internet of Things, voice automation, the human race's future, and the technology of ancient traditions. In his life before Speak to IoT, Biren has held executive leadership positions at Cisco, Zynga, and Facebook to spearhead new business expansions using build, buy, partner, invest, and co-create tools. To promote the spirit of selfless service, Biren actively drives community fundraising and strategic initiatives for several local and global nonprofit organizations. Biren firmly believes in the motto of giving is greater than getting. Biren, it is a great pleasure and an honor to have you here with us today to hear more about voice being the new touch. Thank you and welcome to Leading Entrepreneurs of the World.
Thank you. It's a pleasure. Hello, everyone. It's an honor to be connected to you, especially, first of all, it's Diwali week. So Diwali is the largest Indian festival of lights. So happy Diwali, everyone. And I think the spirit of Diwali it encapsulates today's session very well. It's when you're trying to light up many thousands and hundreds of lamps, you cannot do a single-handed job. You have to light one lamp with another, and you can just do it in a distributed fashion. So knowledge is also shared in the same fashion. It's our collective responsibility of sharing, and by sharing, we all learn a lot in the process. So I really appreciate the spirit of collaboration as part of this Leading Entrepreneurs of the World session, and happy learning, everybody. So as the introduction said, we are Speak to IoT, so which is a simple, secure platform for connecting all smart IoT devices or enterprise workflows to all the prominent intelligent voice assistants, which includes Alexa, Google, Samsung. Siri used to be there, but it's no longer that in the same category anymore, and nor does Microsoft. So it's a patent pending platform, which is connecting voice to anything. So because we believe voice is the new touch, and that's exactly what the session title for today is. And I was fortunate to be part of, like before the startup, I was fortunate to be part of many of these category creator companies. So as part of Facebook, I was humbled to be part of like creating this whole social networking paradigm. Then at Zynga, where I was holding CTO roles for various gaming studios, we created this whole social gaming aspect of the technology. And then later, as part of Cisco, I was fortunate to be part of that small team which coined the term IoT, Internet of Things, and kind of accelerated its proliferation across the globe. And today, as part of Smart India, we are selling Speak to IoT's software expertise bundled with hardware within India, as obviously the name suggests. So today we are going to touch upon a few things about the voice is the new touch, how various aspects of voice are kind of molding the society as we see today and tomorrow, how the future is molded. So before we understand the voice is the new touch, we need to understand like what is the old touch then, right? Because anything when we say something is new, we need to know what is old. So if we look at the evolution of technology over many, many decades, we started with the calculators and computers, and then initially it was extremely hard to do the data input and output. Like you have to manually type in, and get the results in the typed form and all. Then we invented the data IO mechanisms, high speed, starting with punch cards and magnetic tapes and all those things. And then later on came this mouse and digital pens and those kind of devices for further efficiency. Fast forward and a couple of decades back, the mobile revolution started off and everything became touchscreen. But touch revolution actually started way before mobile, not the physical switches that we see everywhere in the buildings and everywhere around us. Well, they may not be smart switches or they may not be the touch switches in today's terms, but they are still physical touch-based interfaces between humans and any other underlying electrical or electronic system, right? So touch interfaces have been around for a while, but this whole mobile revolution made it like very, very prominent, very obvious that everything is driven by touch. So whether it's a physical touch buttons or it's a feather touch or it's on your small screens, wherever you go, it has become the ubiquitous interface between the consumer and any other backend system or device, right? So that's why when we say new touch, the old touch is actually the touch interface between consumers, between end users and the devices. And that has become the prominent, ubiquitous interface over the decades, over the years. So why we care about like voice today? Is really voice poised to take over or maybe just assist or take its position as this new touch interface? Well, I'm not sure. So let's learn why it's even important to discuss, right? So I think one of the basic element is over all this evolution of technology, what we see is human beings are wired to be very, very efficient, or rather call them lazy. We always try to minimize our efforts wherever possible, whether it's a physical effort or cognitive effort. We try to minimize the effort for the same level of fruits or results or outcomes, right? So human beings are inherently efficiency seekers or efficiency promoters or drivers. I mean, that's what kind of proliferates this whole innovative ideas around the world, right? So we are inherently that. And as a result of that, we try to minimize even the cognitive overload that we carry in performing any number of tasks. So for touch interfaces, now zooming back to our main topic, for the touch interfaces, human beings need to engage two senses typically, the physical part and also the eye. So hand-eye coordination is must. But over the years, as part of our efficiency seeking mechanism, voice has emerged as this new candidate, which requires only one sense. You can just talk to something and boom, things happen. You don't have to look at it in order to talk. You don't need hand-eye coordination for that. So it's very, very efficient from that manner, cognitively and effort-wise. And not only that, as you are seeing on the screen, like 50 versus 150, what is that? So 50, typically average humans, I mean, some people are very fast, the typer, they are very fast at typing words on the keyboard, but not with a thumb typing, obviously. But on average, humans are able to type 50 words per minute, roughly. I mean, some are less, some are more. Versus on the voice, you are able to speak about 150 or to 200 words per minute. So the amount of information you can pack in the touch-based interfaces while typing or thumb typing is 1/3 of what you can pack in speaking interfaces. So that efficiency is really enormous. It's like 3 to 4x efficiency. And this 2 versus 1, as we saw earlier, it's instead of 2 senses, you can work with just 1 sense now that you just need to speak various set of commands, various forms of procedures, whatever you want to do with machines, right? So it's twofold efficiency that is actually driving one of the basic reason for the advancement of the voice. Another one is it's very intuitive in nature. So the whole voice-based interfaces, they're very, very intuitive. And it's a funny thing, like I like to play with these words. It's like there is no how part. Now, let me clarify. It's when you are interacting with any technology, you need to know 2 things. One is you need to know what to do or what to achieve by that piece of equipment or technology. And second is how to do. Take mobile applications of today. Not only you need to know which applications to do, like Zoom, we are talking over Zoom or YouTube or any other things. You need to know which application to launch, right? And then you also need to know inside that application that how to do certain things, which buttons to press, which menu items to go through, how do I set your screen, how do I share a document. You need to know a lot about how to do things. The benefit of voice is it's very intuitive and it's a how less system. One does not have to know about how to do things. That is taken care of by the backend heavy lifting procedures. All an end user needs to know is like what to achieve. Like, okay, I want this light to be turned on or off, or brightness adjusted to 50%, 75%, whatever it is. And I can say in any which manner I like. So even incorrect grammar, I can say turn off the light, or I can technically say off light turn, which is perfectly fine in the voice world. It's not okay in the touch-based world. But in the voice world, as long as you are providing enough information to the backend system, that's all it matters. You don't have to know exactly how to pack and configure and construct that information. The structure of the information is irrelevant in the voice world. So that's why there's no teaching, training, no learning overheads. Like in the corporate world, whenever you introduce new systems, you have to undergo like training programs to train all your employees on using this new system that, hey, previously you were clicking on the second menu items. Now that has been moved over to here. And now this is the new way of doing things. So whenever transition happens, there's always an overhead with the non-voice systems. With voice, you can forget about all those things. So it is also very intuitive in that nature. So there's no upgrade penalty for that matter. You can change the underlying underpinnings of the interfaces as you wish without getting the burden of the training and retraining of the employees. And also it's like naturally multilingual. I mean, you don't have to put in a lot of effort for creating one new language. So for example, as part of Speak to IoT, we are doing many proof of concepts projects today for many big companies. And English is obviously first language, but many times we are simply able to do them in Spanish or in Hindi or whatever language of choice without reinventing the wheel again, rinse and repeat the same time. So that's inherently powerful. And other power is when you are doing visual interfaces, you have to worry about left to right and right to left languages as well. With voice, I mean, that whole problem goes away completely, right? There is no need to worry about right to left languages or left to right or any other grammar or any like. So end users' convenience and comfort is of prominent importance, and everything revolves around that. So all the heavy lifting goes on in the back end. The front end is extremely simplified, extremely intuitive, and without like it's a worry-free, training-free. What else is the power of voice? Voice is a lifesaver, actually. Really, I mean, you would ask like how? Well, just go back in time a few years. When cell phone usage, the mobile phone usage, especially in the automobiles, it was growing rapidly. It is still very high. It has been resulting into 1.6 million crashes per year related to cell phone usage while driving alone, right? So based on some estimates, it takes about like 5 seconds to read a text. Like when notification pops up, it takes about like 5 seconds to read a text message while you're driving. And at 55 miles per hour on average speed, you can cover about 360 feet in that distance, which is like roughly equivalent to a football field. So technically you are blindfolded, you are driving at 55 miles an hour, and you are covering the entire football field's length in that time frame without looking at the road, without paying attention to the surrounding conditions, but looking at your text, which popped up in your mobile phone. So that's why the text-based accidents, driving while texting and all those things, there is like 6x more dangerous than driving under the influence of alcohol. So most of the states in US, they have banned texting while driving, like 48 out of 50. But that's where the app-less nature of voice shines through. And voice interface in automobile has been there for many, many decades now. I mean, the quality is horrible. Agreed. Like, yeah, previous voice assistants are not friendly. I mean, they are not able to recognize different accents and different languages with enough friendliness. But more recently, things are changing. So voice is becoming more of an integral part of the whole automobile industry in saving lives. So it is helping people get better focus on the road and away from the distraction. So with voice, you don't have this app switching overhead or distractions associated with the notifications pop in, pop out. You don't have to make any selections while driving with your hands. So all those things are helping out in saving lives with this, and especially in the post-pandemic world. During pandemic, one thing we learned, actually, it was a discovery, unfortunate timings, but insights as a resulting scenario, is the contactless, touchless nature of voice has been helping out a lot in saving lives, preventing people from infections, especially in the high risk zones of like hospitals, medical facilities, and those areas, or when immunocompromised people are gathering, wherever those things are, or even in corporate offices. Like, why do you want people to touch like physical buttons if you can avoid a touch? Why do you want to spread viruses of any kind, whether it's a flu or COVID, whatever it is? Like, why do you want people to touch if you can avoid the touch? So voice is, that's why it's helping lives, not only increasing the convenience and making it intuitive. So it has been becoming more of a first class technology from that manner. And with whole IoT world evolving, the voice is becoming more exponential in nature. So if you look at some of the numbers around this IoT, Internet of Things, I mean, various people quote various numbers, but they are all in billions. Some are in hundreds of billions, but these are like some of the conservative numbers that you see on screen right now, around like 10 billion to 50 billion devices in 2021-22. And based on some estimates, like 75 billion plus devices are going to be there by 2025. So some of them are like tiny devices, some of them are larger devices, but all internet connected devices sending traffic back and forth. Now just pause and imagine, like, roughly based on some estimates, they have projected that 127 devices per second they are going to join internet in the future. So up to 1 million devices, some other estimates say 1 million new devices are going to join internet and the whole the connected world per second. Now imagine, like, how can you onboard, how can you secure, how can you provision, how can you monitor, how can you engage and utilize all those devices without having some kind of automation in place. So automation is must, but efficient automation is inevitable. There is no way we can live without efficient automation, and voice is a very, very helpful ingredient in driving this efficient automation in bulk provisioning, bulk reading, analyzing just the relevant data instead of being bombarded with all the analytics in place, and making an intuitive layer on top of that. So you don't spend much time in just navigating through this like data lakes and giant data sets produced by these powerful IoT devices and ecosystems, but instead you focus on what's relevant, what is meaningful at any given point in time. So that's really the power of voice for the IoT world. So what are the typical usages for voice? Like, where is it used typically, or where is it growing as we speak? So there are like these three primary areas where voice is becoming more and more prominent. And we'll go dive deeper into each one of them. So one is the content discovery or search related area, where voice has been gaining grounds a lot for last almost 7 years. Second area is obviously the convenience of this whole IoTification of the devices, remote operations, control from anywhere, wherever the connectivity is there, and all that kind of areas. And the third thing is the commerce. So we have seen the boom of e-commerce and online commerce, web-based systems, but voice-based commerce is also gaining a lot of popularity as we speak. And there are many other areas. I mean, these three are just like representatives here, but there are many other areas. For example, customer services, like Instead of calling this 800 number and touch tone buttons and press 1 for doing that, press 2 to doing that, and all that, voice is actually taking away all those uncomfortable, kind of annoying interactions for customer service people as well as for consumers. Chatbots, we have been seeing the power of text-based chatbots, but voice-based chatbots or voice bots as we speak, they are also controlling a lot of areas and helping in many different ways, like personalize the concierge services. They are also on the rise. So voice has been helping out with many other use cases in addition to this, like 3 prominent ones. But we'll just quickly go as the impact and look at the impact of each one of these are making today. So for the content, if you see, right, it's amazing to see each bullet points actually maps to a very, very specific area of how the technology is evolving, how the ecosystem has been evolving as we speak. So 20% of all internet searches are voice-based. Now, Google doesn't publish their voice search or any search results, like any statistics around that, but people have been deriving that for many, many years now. And according to most of the common estimates, people are doing roughly 63, or at least on Google, 63,000 searches per second in a very conservative manner. And by virtue of having this 20% number there, it's like 12,000 searches, 1/5 roughly, of that are voice searches. So 12,000 voice searches are happening per second to discover a variety of content across the globe. And that results in like the bullet 4, item 4 here is on the slide, is like 1 billion plus actually voice searches are taking place every month based on a separate estimate. So I mean, billions of voice searches are happening as we speak. So volume is enormous and it's growing. Second point says it's a 58% of the consumers, they are using voice to find like local businesses. So it's a highly localized content discovery. So where is that Pizza Hut, or where is that Burger King, or where is the post office close to me, or how long that FedEx location is open? People are using voice queries for highly localized business interactions in a massive scale. So it's growing. And the third part is also equally interesting, like 40% of the adults use voice search daily. So it's not just a one-time fad, it's a habit forming activity. It is the continuous interaction which repeats day after day, month after month, and year after year, right? So it is habit forming. And it is trending also, like as bullet point 5 says, like 1 out of every 4 people aged 16 to 24, highly likely target audience, they use voice search on mobile phones. So 25% of these particular demographic, they use voice search on mobile phones, and Google has done a fantastic job of integrating the voice search on as part of the Android by default. So all the Android population in the world, they are more likely to leverage and use voice search in the future. They are already using it today, but they are more likely to continue to use it in the future. And the last point is also it's screen-less devices. So 30% of the searches are taking place without screen in 2020, right? So more and more non-screen devices, maybe it's an Apple Watch, or maybe it's a smart speaker, or maybe it's like something else. So more and more searches are happening on screen-less devices as we speak. So whole touch phenomenon, like where you have to see and type. So that is slowly fading away in the favor of the voice. And that's just one example how the content discovery has been helping with that transition. The second one is the convenience part of it, like IoT device control from anywhere, right? So just look at some of the items here is like number of brands that were supporting Alexa. And these are like public results, right? So only like 1,200 or maybe 1,000 brands were supporting Alexa 3 years back. And today, more than 10,000 brands are supporting Alexa for voice control of a variety of IoT devices, whether it's a smart home or even soft skills in some cases. And speaking of skills, as the point number 2 says, it's in January 2016, Alexa had only 130 skills, less than 200. And in 2020 or 2019, it already crossed this 100K mark for the number of skills which are active on Alexa. So these are like voice skills, or you can call them voice apps for just the equivalence terminology in the mobile app world. So each skill is an app from a voice world perspective. And not only that, its voice is providing more humanized, more emotionally aware interactions with like stories and jokes and some trivia and weather and flipping coin, lots of things. And the key point there is it's driving actually more and more neutralization in the society across various age demographics. Typically, what happens is for any new touch-based technology, the more later age groups like 40 and above, and unlikely for the senior population, right? So they are not very comfortable, obviously, with the touch-based technologies, with the like shaky hands and like weak eyesights and all those powers of forces of nature. Younger population is typically more into adopting new technologies. Voice is acting as an equalizing force in the society. So both young and old, they can equally use without any burden of technology. They can equally leverage this voice-based skills or technology. So they can use voice to interact with any number of devices. So that's another powerful area of voice. And last but not the least is like all-in-one platforms like Speak to IoT. Speak to IoT is one of those all-in-one platforms, like where we interact and we support Alexa, Google, Samsung, whatever is the publicly cloud-based voice assistant out there, popular. It's there, we support today, and it's also future-proof by the virtue of this architectural design, right? And we have a patent pending on that. But a risk mitigation perspective, like think of a device manufacturer, like if that device manufacturer has a limited budget for supporting, let's say, one voice assistant, that device manufacturer has to decide whether, okay, I want to go with Alexa or want to go with Google or want to go with Samsung or want to reinvent the wheel, do my own, what do I need to do? And if they want to do more than one, they have to just do rinse and repeat. Invest like almost same or more amount of energy into not only developing that particular voice assistant compatibility, but also babysitting for the foreseeable future, all that. So as part of Speak to IoT platform, we eliminate all those tough decisions from people, right? So basically what we do is we introduce a different level of convenience for them, for this device and appliance manufacturers. We give them one-stop shop. So just with one effort, they can make their devices compatible with Alexa, with Google, with Samsung, all in one go. And not only that, they are future-proof as well. So let's say fourth or fifth player comes in the future, and they say, hey, I also have a voice assistant, like maybe in Metaverse or something, right? Facebook powered or some other new company comes in. These device manufacturers, they don't have to make any changes to their devices. So previously sold devices, let's say 6 months back, they sold a whole batch of like 1 million devices. Once we make the change in the Speak to IoT cloud to support this new voice assistant, all those 1 million devices or so previously sold for that manufacturer who was basically using our services, they suddenly become voice activated and enabled for this brand new voice assistant, right? So that's another power of voice, that the change penalty is very, very low for manufacturers if they're using the right tools and SDKs and stacks like Speak to IoT or somebody else. So that's another power of voice. And speaking of commerce, right? It's not just the e-commerce versus voice commerce, but it's E plus V. So voice is always an augmentation of the e-commerce, not a replacement so far. And replacement is unlikely to happen. It's going to be a slow transition for all practical purposes. So voice shopping, if you look at some numbers, like it's an exponential growth in dollar terms. So voice shopping is estimated to be 40 billion in US by next year, right? Which is like, it was 2 billion something in 2018. So which is an exponential growth in the net dollar figure. The second one is also interesting. It's a repetitive habit, right? People are using voice-based purchases repeatedly, month over month, week over week. So that's another interesting piece of statistic to pay attention to. The third one is also one of the major use case that they are using like 43%, that's a sizable chunk. So 43% of voice-enabled device owners, they are using their device for shopping. Forget about all those other trivia applications like weather and jokes and stories and all that. This is like net business, right? We are talking about hard cash here. So they are making voice-based transactions using those devices, so which is like a big deal. 43% is a really big number in that sense. And the last item is also very important, is like 51% are using to research the product. So web was the pioneer in the comparison shopping world or experience for consumers, right? Before web, people had to go like physically from store to store to actually do any kind of comparison shopping. So the whole online world introduced new level of comparison shopping experience for people with convenience, like with sitting like with few mouse clicks, you can see prices in various places online. Voice has been adding one more layer on top of that. Like without even looking at it, you can figure out things and you can do a lot more research with the same amount of time and resources you have available. So that's another efficiency driver compared to the web. And there is a slow transition which is happening from the e-commerce world to the v-commerce world or the voice commerce world. And that's also very critical. But again, as happens with any and all technologies, voice world is not free of concerns. So there are some concerns, obviously, genuine concerns, which people have. And a few of them are listed here on screen. They are like always on or continuous listening mode, or versus like accidental invocations. That happens a lot for me. Like even when we are talking in family, like Siri suddenly wakes up and starts picking up things like, hey, like, did you call me? No, no, sorry, shut up. We are just talking, having a private conversation. And the third is also critical action authorization. So some of the problems are being solved. Some of the problems will be solved eventually, just like they were unsolved 20 years back for the web world. And today, most of them are solved in one sense or the other, including, let's say, two-factor authentication and fingerprinting. So same way, voice printing, two-factor authentication, those things are being deployed in the voice world increasingly to ease on these concerns. And I remember distinctly, like at the very beginning, the first experiment we did with voice in 2016 was as part of Cisco, was voice-based flying of drones. So no joysticks, no mobile phones, but voice commands to fly drone. You can issue the commands like take off and land and go left, go right, increase the speed, reduce the speed, increase height, reduce height, all that. And one of the concern was like, hey, how do you authorize like whether somebody else is talking or the genuine authorized person is talking? So we had deployed today's two-factor authentication for those critical commands. Certain like read-only commands you can always do like, hey, without authentication or without this 2FA. But for critical commands, whatever you deem critical for your operations, you can always put in additional checks and balances in place. Just like any other web-based system, also one would do. Even emails, Gmail is going to make it mandatory starting this November 9, this two-factor authentication, right? So even for emails and other like traditional mature systems, you are going to need additional checks and balances to protect the privacy and security of the ecosystem. And voice is no different. So it is going to happen sooner or later. And the reason is because the voice is the new phase of this whole digital transformation or digitalization for that matter. And during our research and our customer interactions and where we see the growth and where we see the traction, we have identified these three key areas, and there might be many more obviously, but where voice is like a very, very natural fit. So one category is this whole IoT device category, whether it's a smart home or smart office or smart industry, whatever smart label you want to put for the location of those smart devices. But the IoT devices is one category. Then second one is the voice for corporate workflows. So any other legacy workflows or processes, paper oriented or automated, they can be voiceified and made it more convenient in nature, and much more productivity can be obtained as a result. And the third area is all human experiences, and that might include all the customer service things or your warranty confirmation or debugging of certain things jointly with an agent from the company online and all that. So there are many, many other domains where voice is playing an active role. And we'll briefly touch upon like each of these three areas in turn. So one of them is this IoT devices, right? So IoT devices, they also split in like three categories for ease of learning. So one is obviously smart home appliances, right? So there, if we just look at those numbers, like simple switches and fan regulators and garage door openers and all. So in US alone in 2021, this year, there were 260 million households. They were considered like smart, having some smart device within the household. And that is expected to be 500 million by 2025, right? So which is like a huge jump. And that second logo you see on the bottom, like our subsidiary Smart India, that is focusing exactly on this segment of automating, voicifying the smart home, smart company, smart enterprise, all the appliances, any kind of hardware. By putting our intelligent software inside that hardware, you can make it as intelligent voice operated hardware. Doesn't matter what it is. Just put our software in and boom, right? Your hardware becomes intelligent and voicified and IoT compliant, including the mobile app and obviously the touch based or regular controls. So that's like one area of IoT devices. Other area is intelligent buildings, all this like rule-based lightings and AI-powered HVAC systems and smart conferences, online conferences, as well as the conference rooms as the world is getting back to normal. So all those things can become smart with voice and IoT combination. So just one example is like many people are replacing the traditional lighting with LED lighting. I mean, that's a very well-known fact. I mean, it's a no-brainer that LEDs save energy for people on the energy bills. But if that LED is always running at 100% of power without any intelligence, you are not actually optimizing your savings. So what our systems, we have done some projects to improve the optimization of those very LEDs within the corporate structures. So in a given company, it has like, let's say 25, 50,000 square feet of working space. You could potentially save 20% to 40% on your energy bill month after month, just by intelligently tuning the brightness of the LEDs based on the number of people present or based on the time of the day, based on sunrise, sunset timings, and all those like bunch of factors. So intelligent buildings are becoming more and more greener by leveraging this IoT and voice technologies. And the third element is this connecting the unconnected. So there are many, many industrial legacy devices. And we had done a project in partnership with Cisco, especially with their industrial IoT routers, IR1101 series, where like some of the devices could be purely like serial devices or some customized on the wire control. They are not connected. And when they were deployed, they were not meant to be connected to internet. So there is no Wi-Fi, there is no Ethernet, nothing, no physical connectivity. And there are a few other technologies which don't support direct connectivity to internet either, like VLE or RFID or Zigbee, Z-Wave, bunch of things. So we have seen like some gateway-based deployment models to connect those devices. But what our proof of concept was done was around like behind the firewalls, serial or USB or any other like legacy devices which were otherwise not connected to internet. Not only you can connect to internet, but you can remotely monitor, control that device using touch applications, mobile apps, or using voice controls in an intuitive fashion. You don't have to be VPN'd in, or you don't have to be looking at only very specific IT-centric dashboard in order to control that device. So the whole control mechanism is decentralized. Obviously, it is authorized and authenticated appropriately, but it is decentralized. It does not reside only in the clamps of certain groups, for that matter. So IoT devices was one area. Second area is this whole enterprise domain. So there also it's a gamut of applications we can leverage using voice. And few of them are listed here, which we are doing and executing in partnership with giant players like Juniper Mist, Cisco, Meraki. So they have this existing Wi-Fi infrastructure in corporate offices and small, medium businesses, large businesses, enterprises everywhere. So we are directly leveraging those applications, those infrastructure elements to provide more of a voice-powered, AI-powered applications on top So one example is this pandemic proof campus experiences where without touching anything, you can figure out like what is the approximate number of people in various parts of any campus, any office, any room, any conference rooms, etc. You can remotely monitor all that and decide like, hey, whether it's safe to go to that place. Like if you want to go to a gym, you can actually check how many people are there currently, roughly. And system will tell you that, hey, there are roughly 25 people out of this allowed capacity of 50. Then you know that, yes, it's a pretty good time for me to visit the gym, or otherwise I can postpone as well. Other use case is this voice AI for contactless asset location. So anything on wheels, any valuable piece of asset, typically it has a tendency to get misplaced and it disappears over a period of time, right? When many people are using any asset, any valuable asset on wheels, you always have to figure out like where things are. But by putting some BLE or RFID tags, you can now track those assets using voice that, hey, where is that forklift? Where is that wheelchair? Where is that emergency cart? Where is that ultrasound cart in a medical facility? And it will show you like nicely visually sometimes if you have the capability. Otherwise, it will play back with voice. So all those things are possible even in enterprise, medical, commercial, industrial setup, which was not possible before, or it was extremely cumbersome before. And as I said earlier, we are working in partnership with Cisco, Meraki, Juniper Mist, and all big players to leverage those capabilities. Being a small startup, obviously, that's this partnership and collaboration is the best bet you can have. Same way in the enterprise, there is another completely new domain which is opening up. Like many people have heard about this personalized emergency response systems or MPERS, mobile devices, like where you see, I have one device here, right? This pendant-like devices, which are very good for seniors or people of special needs, where they are like geolocation based or single button emergency operation devices. But now flipping the things, like that's how things have always worked. It's not a new technology. But we are working with few companies to voiceify the experience of the caregivers, of the family members, of the loved ones. They can passively stay in touch with what their loved ones are doing. So as outlined in the slide, like a family member can ask like, hey, where is my mom? And as long as they are in a well-identified geofence location at home or at a particular facility, that's fine. Like they are just good. They say, hey, they are in a nice location. Don't worry about it. And whenever they go out of that certain geofenced area, they can get notifications and they can figure things out. They can also provide the indications of what they're supposed to do, that, hey, remind my dad to measure his blood pressure in the morning, and boom, that device can do the job of it. Like, so as a caregiver, as a loved one, I don't have to worry about, hey, where do I log in? How do I things like, and how do I make it happen? There are like 10 different actions that generally I would like to do. Voice makes it super simple that I don't have to know about like where or how or exactly like what do I need to do in order to take care of my loved one, right? So that's another big area which is possible in the enterprise domain. And the third one is the experience part of it, right? So they're also just IoT devices, enterprise, and the third domain is the human experience. Everything revolves around the human experience. So plant floor operations, basically we did some proof of concepts there. Like you are on a manufacturing heavy machinery, like for example, turbine, heavy machinery manufacturing plant floor. There, like there are so many elements at play, which you would require like measuring the feed of like, hey, whether the plant is running okay, the manufacturing system is running okay, what's the temperature, cooling, all those parameters. But if something goes bad, then what are the replacement parts? What are the troubleshooting procedures? Like what is the lead time on the replacement part based on the prediction models, like where you are, when or you are going to get, and like what is the lead time in getting the part delivered and all that? Or how should you plan for a possible downtime in the future based on the parameters at runtime? So there are so many different things, but we have kind of brought everything together with voice. There is a holistic experience for the person on the plant floor. Is like they just need to speak their commands that, hey, how is this machine doing, or what can I do to operate it better, or reduce the temperature, or increase the cooling level. If I have to replace the part, what is the best possible place I should place an order for? Are there any specials going on? Like bunch of things you can do just go fly around all the questions as a human being. It's a human-centric operation. So voice is a very human-centric experience provider. You don't have to know things, you just have to fire up questions and concerns, and system will figure out the right place and get back to you in a contextual manner. And the second example here is also customer interaction. Sometimes, even though we are making these online purchases and all, people are excessively using voice to find local businesses, right? And just here it says 51% people use restaurant discovery using voice. Not only restaurants, but 41% of the users are using for locating grocery stores and grocery purchases. 32% of the people are using for ordering food, all the DoorDash and other places online, right? So they are using voice excessively for their day-to-day lives, for this customer interactions. The second point is also very critical, this assisted purchases with inbound calls. So even though we make those online purchases, sometimes we have like some simple questions. So traditional process is to browse through the FAQs and trust the FAQs and put your trust in like whoever has answered that question to your satisfaction. But what if you could directly reach to a company representative or a system or a robot behind the scene for the company and authoritatively get clarification of your question or concern? So according to some estimates, this like assisted interactions, they result in 30% faster conversion rate. And not only that, sometimes they result in 10x or 15x more revenue as a result of providing timely assistance to the potential purchaser of a company. And the last point here is the personalized is high touch customer experience at low touch scaling and prices. So usually the scale and detail, they don't go together very well. If you want to achieve scale, you have to let go on the detail of some things. And if you want to achieve details, you have to let go on the scale because they typically don't coexist. Voice is the one thing which makes them coexist. So you can achieve heavy degree of personalization with this voice powered AI intelligence behind the scenes. And you can achieve at the cost competency levels, the bottom line pricing structure to make that as a viable entity, right? So it is the combination, the best of both worlds. And if you look at it otherwise, like what are the drivers for any technology's adoption in the world, right? So I've used this like many times, but it all comes down and boils down to three main things. It's the top line, bottom line, and stickiness. You can summarize everything in this thing. So any technology, if it has to be successful, it has to be providing one of this value driver. So either it has to result in higher degree of monetization, which is creating new business models, new services, new revenue streams, the top line part, or it should increase the productivity drastically using innovation, value engineering, and other concepts so that you manage your bottom line. So you reduce the cost so much that your overall profitability increases. Or the third thing is the end user or stakeholder experience, employees as well as customers. How can you improve the experience with insights, with engagement metrics and all, so that the stickiness is higher or churn is lower? So either you have to manage the top line or bottom line or churn. So any technology which does not touch any of these three things, three elements, it has practically zero chance of survival or success for that matter. So any technology which has to succeed has to provide at least one of the value drivers. Now, some technologies, they provide more than one. So obviously with more, you have higher chances of success and in the industry and stickiness as well. People are going to like more and more because it saves money or it makes you more money or it improves the customer experience, whatever. But the great thing about voice is voice touches upon all the three elements. And there are rarely only a handful of technologies in the history that touch upon all the three drivers at the same time. So voice can help you monetization, as we have seen in the past, like with voice commerce and searches and discovery and all that, and the engagement with localized businesses and all. Voice can increase the productivity drastically by providing this holistic, as we saw in the plant floor example, like holistic information system or even the corporate automation for doing the tasks which are otherwise taking 5 hours to do. You can do it in 5 minutes with voice-powered, AI-powered technologies. And the third thing is the experience, that aha feeling that you get as a result, that exactly this is what I wanted. So all the assisted purchases or getting the right personalized care and support in the time of need, or as we saw in the purse example, is like taking care of your loved ones, or in the hospital setup, doing things in a contactless manner, or in an enterprise setup, doing things at scale, leveraging the power of existing Wi-Fi and other network infrastructure elements. All those things, they are providing that wow element for the experience. So voice has this rare combination of 1, 2, and 3, all the top line, bottom line, and experience as a result. So even though when we say voice is no touch, it's contactless, even though voice we say there's no touch, voice is actually becoming a new touch for that matter. And that's exactly what we have seen today in terms of our observations of the industry, how things are evolving, how things are making sense, and how things are going to move forward in the future. So with that, I would definitely love to hear from you about any business engagement, collaboration opportunities around voice, around IoT, obviously. But more importantly, there are like a lot of strategic partnerships we can do. And that is not only on Alexa or Google. We have had some inquiries and we have provided some systems which are using completely native voice-based systems. So if somebody wants to go and venture out with their own voice assistant or their own branded voice experience, that is fine too. I mean, it's not as simple, obviously, but it is doable. And we have been working on those projects as well, and those elements as well. So feel free to reach out to us. Email address is there on the screen, talk@speaktoiot.com, and would be happy to hear from you. But with one final quote I would like to leave is like, and I love this very much. And most of you might have heard about it. It says, if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. And that's exactly is, again, the purpose of these sessions is like, by sharing our experiences, observations, how the industry is evolving, we actually all learn together. And we can make a difference together by working and collaborating on many different ideas. Voice is just one example, but let's spread and continue to spread this knowledge, gain this deeper understanding about every single piece of technology around us, business around us, collectively together. So with that, thank you very much for today's opportunity and appreciate your time and commitment.